Welcome to Forbes Newsroom. Joining me now is Zach Everson, a staff writer here at Forbes. Zach, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be back, Brittany.
You've reported before on politicians' PACs or campaigns spending money to buy their books. Who's the latest?
The latest is former Vice President Mike Pence. His PAC spent $91,000 on November 9th at a bookstore, which they then confirmed to me that, yes, it was on the vice president's book, which came out 6 days later. And, as I was thinking about the timing of this, and it didn't get in the article, but November 6th, that is right after the election. This is a election that the Republicans narrowly lost the Senate. They narrowly won the House. They were about to go in a runoff in Georgia. Mike Pence has a PAC, and he decides to spend $91,000 on his own book.
In terms of other politicians spending money on their own book, where does $91,000 land? Is that a lot or more par for the course?
It's up there. I mean, typically you see it in the tens of thousands. Occasionally you'll see it reach into six figures. What's interesting with this one is also it did become a bestseller. It debuted at number 2 on the bestseller list. And the New York Times, though, flags books when they're bulk purchase reported. And there was no such bulk purchase reported here for Pence's book. So I'm not sure if it just wasn't factored in or what the deal is, but it certainly appears that this big purchase, not only did he profit, but he got some nice publicity ending up on the New York Times bestseller list if these books, in fact, were counted towards that.
And you mentioned the timing. What does that timing right around the election indicate?
It indicates it's where his priorities for his PAC were for buying his book and not necessarily spreading the wealth. It's also an interesting decision for somebody who's potentially running for president. One of the best ways they can shore up some support from other politicians is to start spreading the money around. Case in point, Kevin McCarthy. And, Mike Pence chose not to do that and instead spend the money on his book.
And you write that even if politicians don't profit directly when their political committees buy their book, it can benefit them. Can you elaborate on that?
Exactly. Sure. There are two major ways that I see they can benefit. First of all is the aforementioned New York Times bestseller list. If their purchases, even if they don't profit from that purchase directly, if the purchase gets them on the New York Times bestseller list, that's some great publicity. Not just appearing it on the list itself, but New York Times best-selling author gets slapped all over the book and all sorts of other promotional materials. The other way is it might make them more enticing to publishers in the first place. And sure, okay, this guy's going to write a book and maybe people will buy it. Maybe there'll be some interest, but he can buy $100,000 worth of his own book. That's got to appeal to publishers. And the law's written so that if you're actually a candidate, you're not supposed to be able to personally profit from those deals. You're supposed to buy it directly from the publishers. Doesn't always happen. And in this case, Pence, not being an active candidate, bought at retail. So even if the author's not getting their cut, the publisher certainly is, and they're certainly moving all of those books, which I would imagine would make working with a politician a lot more enticing.
Of course, and you mentioned that it was legal for Mike Pence to do this, but where's the ethical lines here?
I talked to a campaign finance expert who said, yes, this is legal because he's no longer a candidate for public office. The ethical lines are really blurry. I mean, Mike Pence, it didn't appear he's donated any money to his own to the PAC. So that is 100% using donor money to buy his book. And ostensibly, they said they structured the deal in a way that he wouldn't profit directly from it. But again, it does benefit him when those purchases are made. So, it's really murky waters there. And you keep seeing people pushing that, especially Senator Ted Cruz, who's been using campaign funds to buy ads, encouraging people to buy his book retail, which is a way to definitely shore up his sales and profit directly.